who you are, your role at your company, but then also, a question I've always had is, what do you see engineering's role really being in building and maintaining your customers' trust? It can be an internal customer or an external customer. Fred, you want to start?
Yeah. So we're using AI as a theme these days. I asked Gemini to help me to introduce myself. So I don't want to do it myself. It's easier. So it said I should, hold on, look up, smile, be relaxed. I'm a principal engineer at Xero, based in Melbourne, Australia. Fun fact, we have the best coffee in the world. If you want to debate that, buy me a coffee when you're in Melbourne next time. Xero is a small business, global small business platform, and we provide services like accounting, core, payroll, expenses to small businesses to run their business and their finances. I'm part of the engineering experience team at Xero, and we use data analytics to resolve issues around development processes. We provide productivity tools to our teams, which includes AI solutions and release process systems. Engineering role. Every organization has got a substantial amount of services, systems we use to provide services to our customers. And that could be in a financial context, payments, the way we look after money from a banking perspective, mortgages, etc. And it really comes down to the platforms that we built. It's intertwined with customer trust. Customer need to be able to trust us in looking after money, looking after the data that we're looking after, the data we own as part of the customer. The way we do that from a platform perspective, and that's where the engineer really comes in, is how we develop that. We ensure that those platforms are secure, reliable, we scalable, and then these days with innovation to be able to move fast.
Okay, so make that trust happen by making sure the data is available and reliable.
Yeah.
Love that. Purva, what about you?
Yeah, hey everyone, I am Purva. I've been working in fintech for the past 10 plus years. I started my journey working as an IC for Visa Card, where I helped develop payment gateways. I moved to Bank of America almost 3 years ago, where I'm working as an engineering manager. So essentially what we do is we are creating merchant services platform for well-integrated point-of-sale applications. So anything and everything when it comes to shipping the actual terminals to the merchants from the point a card transacts on to the point the money gets deducted. That's entire orchestration is basically what my team manages. In addition to that, I am very passionate about not just growing engineers, but also growing individuals as people. Also the reason why I think I work as a therapist on some of my days. But to answer your question, I think when a customer looks at banking as a modern platform, they look for two things: infrastructural availability and security. So it's very important from a banking platform to ensure that your infrastructure's uptime is available almost 24/7, which is extremely hard. The SREs really need to understand the SLOs and the SLAs involved in this entire process. The performance team needs to really test the true journey of a dollar from the time somebody swipes a card to the point it's deducted from to their account at the end of the settlement transaction. When I talk about security, the developers really think about not just secure by design, but also think about, are there better encryption approved methodologies today? Are there better MFAs? Are there biometric validations which are required? So in today's world, for a modern banking platform, I do think engineers are almost like an invisible power who are translating these infrastructural and security needs into actual, a tangible product for our clients.
What about you, Solomon?
Hi, I'm Solomon. I've spent my time at both really big companies and really small companies, so Capital One, but also startups, like really small startups. Currently, I am working on the accounts payable team for small business at Capital One. So what we do is we have a tool for people, or for small businesses to be able to pay their vendors, which sounds kind of trivial, but it is not. It is complicated and scary. What I think, there's obvious things that engineers need to do to promote trust, like build tools that work and don't break. But I think also having the engineers understand the customer experience all the way through, like not just what their tickets say to do, but like literally like what is the customer going to see at the end of the day is like a really big piece that some companies miss, where once you have that, then when the engineer is developing, they're developing with the end customer in mind, and the tools will work because they're thinking about what the customers are going to be doing with the tools rather than just what they need the tools to do in the first place. So I think having that holistic end-to-end experience is really what helps.
Yeah, and I think the three of you, you know, it's not lost on us, the three of you all deal with people's money. So whether it be a company or an individual's, and that's such a sensitive thing to them, right? And so making sure you have trust on such a sensitive topic with both your internal and external customers.
I think it's money and health data are like
Yeah.
the two that you cannot mess up.
Yes, I would agree with that. So let's jump in. Let's talk a little bit about what you're focused on right now and what you're focused on specifically on how to raise that bar in engineering excellence. And how do you really ensure that you can scale that across large distributed teams? All three of you work at large companies. So I've got to think that distributing that and scaling that is quite hard. Fred, since you're here on my left, why don't you go first?
Always me first.
Always.
Well, there's two things we're working on, and one is from an innovation perspective. So Xero, we're very privileged to have a hackathon twice a year. And the reason I'm calling that out is because it's something unique that I haven't experienced before, where hackathon is not just purely from an engineering perspective. It is across the organization. Everybody in the organization are in a position to participate. And bringing that AI theme and flavor to this is really to encourage all of our Xeros to be in a position to get comfortable and to transition to the new world we're going in. Now, I mentioned I'm in the engineering experience team, and I'm really just going to focus on what we're doing at the moment. And this has been an ongoing journey. It is really focusing on developer experience. And that's, again, with leveraging and really bringing in the AI tools for engineers to be able to start using that and to, again, really getting comfortable and to really start to use that to be more productive, to enable engineers to be more focused on solving business problems. We were talking about the customer, and it's really important for us to then to pivot to that point where we don't have to worry about the trivial things that we have to look at. And the way we do that is, earlier we were talking about GitHub Copilot. That's something that we have rolled out across the organization. So every engineer is in a position to leverage GitHub Copilot from an IDE perspective, but then also from a quality perspective, the ability to review PRs, to really get that visibility of things that we need to be aware of. And that includes security. And all of these things really come back to what we do for our customers. We really want to ensure that whatever we roll out as an organization are safe and secure.
I love that. You talk a little about, we talked this morning on how AI specifically, there's no playbook for it, and everyone is so excited, but also skeptical. And so having a hackathon so folks can get really comfortable with this new world is such a great idea, and it's a good idea to bring a lot of teams together.
Absolutely.
Solomon, what are you guys doing over at Capital One?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. So the big issue that I've seen now is as teams have gone towards microservices, the ownership has gotten smaller and smaller, which is good because it means teams are focused on one specific little part of the code so that they can really perfect it and make sure it's good and clean. However, it's caused this issue where now every team's also responsible for their own infrastructure and their own problems that come up when the infrastructure comes up. So a big thing we're focusing on is shifting left a lot of that kind of process to make sure that when problems arise, or before problems arise, everything is caught in kind of the deploy pipeline, in the development process of scans and stuff, instead of each team owning it and trying to have a standard across the company that each team is responsible for, having one team that's responsible for it on a wide berth. So it's kind of a hybrid system of microservices, but then an overarching kind of excellence org of making sure that everything is shifted left for that.
So start early and think through that too.
Get started early, but also have kind of an envelopment of all the microservices in not have, the engineers don't need to focus on so much on all of that, and they can focus on just developing.
I love that. And I think that is going to be, that continues to be the thing that we hear so much about, right? Like we heard about it in other talks as well. Like how do we get them focused on the things that they need to work on versus the things that don't make you any money? So in the last talk, we talked about feedback loops, but we talked about them in a little bit differently in just the developer's adoption of a portal. But I want to take a step back. And, Purva, I'd love to start with you. What metrics or feedback loops have you seen been the most useful or the most impactful in aligning engineering performance with business outcomes, like customer trust that you touched on, platform reliability, or just regulatory readiness?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think when I think about infrastructural readiness, which is something what our customers look at, we do follow the DORA metrics that we've been speaking about since the morning. So the MTTR, the deployment frequency, the time a PR commit takes from the time it is developed up to production. But I think the other two metrics that we really look for is, one is the actual customer satisfaction feedback loop, which I think a lot of engineers don't get to see on a day-to-day basis because we are there trying to put stuff to production and hope it works like magic. But the hope is that they do get a real-time feedback from our customers. And this is one of the stats that we've been tracking is how are our customers really interacting with our UI? With so much data out there, are they able to understand and make sense and who are around the right icons at the right period of time? What's their volume? What's like their Black Friday volume? When do they expect the services to be available almost 24/7? What are the times in which they have the highest amount of volume in the day? So these metrics are sort of put into almost like a customer satisfaction score and given back to the developers to help them understand that even if it's a 2-line of code change that you're making in the feature that's going to touch this, it's going to impact immensely. And that is a very good tool for developers to almost get like a 360-degree feedback from their day-to-day development cycle. But since we are a banking industry, we also do have compliance standards to maintain, security standards to maintain. So there are also a lot of security metrics with every application and services, which are updated almost on a regular basis. So per se, if I have a feature that goes in next week, can I address a security concern which has been raised along with it? One of the additional things that we've also done is if there has been a production incident, we link it to the line of code. And what's been interesting with that is whenever a developer is looking at that, and even if it's been a line of code that they have changed, they understand that there is someone in a town in Alaska who's trying to transact for a tipping functionality and is not able to do so. So it's very important that they understand the importance of the change that they're doing. But at the end of it, what is something that I try to resonate with them is we are trying to review our failures, but not people. And it is very important that we keep reiterating that because the goal why we have these dashboards, we have these metrics, is to come closer and closer to the 6 nines of an SLO. And I think that has been very powerful in terms of developers understanding how powerful our platform is for our merchants.
I love the idea of bringing CSAT forward. I think that's such a cool way to just show the real impact in a customer's words and using data at the same time. I think that's a really innovative idea. Solomon, what about you?
So there's a lot of emphasis at Capital One on performance management. And so one literal feedback loop we have is 360 reviews from not just the tech org, but like all the product and design orgs to kind of give a sense of how someone's doing, not just within their own team, but like as like a broader holistic product. So that's like one very literal way. But another thing we have is this concept of you build it, you own it. So when you build infrastructure or put anything out there into the world, like if anything goes wrong, again, like it's yours to own. And I think that does two things where one, it kind of passively handles platform reliability because no one wants to put anything out there that might break because they're the ones that are going to have to be responsible for fixing it. And also just like having pride in what you build of like, it's your thing. So those two are kind of the big way that we're doing that.
Does your performance review, the 360s, does it touch on things like customer readiness or the fact that, oh, Solomon built this thing, how did it actually do? And people give feedback on the thing that you built?
Yeah, so like without getting too much in the weeds, there's like some categories of like bars that are set, and then you can give feedback against those categories, and it's pretty open. You can just type whatever you want. But so it wouldn't necessarily be a specific like thing like that, but it would be more like, you know, teamwork, like stuff like that.
I mean, it's that anecdotal feedback that gives you some of that better picture too, right? The data's there, but then you get that feedback.
Exactly.
That's great. So Fred, I have a question for you. You're back up. Are you ready?
Deep breath, look up, smile.
How have you modernized or evolved legacy systems in a way that maintains trust and reliability across high-risk infrastructure?
So I mean, Xero has been around for about 2 decades. And I think like any other organization, we've got systems that's been around for quite a while of time. And to be able to pivot and move away from a legacy system to something new, like a distributed or, you know, a few new greenfield APIs to replace that systems, we really need to be in a position that we can do that safely. And the things we use at Xero, one is we have criticality tiering across the whole product. So we use the concept of jobs to be done based on a system, and we use that to calculate a criticality tiering for all services that we have. And that really gives you an indication of if you start modernizing, and you can use a form of strangler pattern as an example, what the risk would be involved. If it's a low-tier system and it's, you know, it's been around for a while, the risk in moving away from that and the impact on a customer would be quite low in comparison to something high. So criticality tiering, and then as part of that, we have our reliability standards, have a clear indication to the teams that when we start moving away from things, you know, what's the expectation around testing, rollback strategies, you know, and looking at customer impact when we do make those kind of changes.
It's interesting. I always forget that Xero has been around for such a long time because you think of it as a very new, high-tech company, and that the fact that you are 20 years old, there's got to be so much constant evolution and modernization that must be happening.
Absolutely.
All right, Purva, you said everyone's favorite word, compliance.
Yeah.
It's the first time we heard it today. Given that you're in such a high regulation environment, how do you create space for your developers to be able to innovate and get that spirit of innovation while staying compliant and audit ready?
It's a great question. So I'm going to say it out loud. Compliance is not the most sexy aspect of working for a tech company in the fintech world. It's just not. I say it. It's out there.
Sexy.
But it's really, really pivotal. And I'll give you an example to explain why. Imagine you're running a really bougie restaurant in New York City right across the street. So of course, your food has to be delicious. But in addition to that, you need to ensure that the quality of the ingredients that you're using are impeccable. The way that you store your food is great. You're thawing your meat at the right temperature. You're ensuring your employees are washing their hands for 20 seconds. After that, so when a food inspector comes into your restaurant, the food inspector is going to check box all of these requirements and say, not is your food really delicious, but it's safe for people to consume. And that's how I think about compliance now. It is sort of a check mark that needs to happen before our things get to production. And I think probably it was Sage who brought this up in our first panel discussion today, is there are no bets on the table. Either your application and services are compliant and have been GIS approved and they get to production, or it just does not. There is no gray area. This is a black and white situation in the banking world, at least at Bank of America it is. So it's very important that there are certain processes involved in this process before it gets to production. So the way that we do it today is whenever we know when a requirement comes in, we are ensuring that if a particular type of data is around PII, we're ensuring that this particular data is going to talk with different vendors within the servers or outside our servers. We need to ensure we are involving the right teams at the right time. So these are our legal teams, our information architecture teams, our security teams. And that's when our tech SMEs work with these respective teams, depending on the type of problem that you're trying to solve. But at the same time, we want our developers to focus on development by sort of shifting left to the idea of security. So there are certain tools that we have integrated with our existing IDEs that help us identify these code smells very early on. So the developers are not surprised, oh, we have found a security finding. So that's something that's done during the development process. We also have check marks included with our CI/CD pipeline, which help mark or identify certain types of security breaches, and they rank it as low, medium, high. And in order for your build to get into production, you have to resolve the high and the medium findings. And that's extremely important so that your production build in itself is sort of free from any security breaches. So we do try to incorporate these steps to ensure that the developer is still focusing on development, but there is an aspect of security that they also think about when they're writing it. But having these tools being integrated as a part of the day-to-day process, it really helps them to not primarily just think about compliance the entire time.
Yeah, so like have it there as a guardrail, as part of, kind of like the ritual that we were talking about earlier, right? Like have it be part of the ritual, but continue to innovate at the same time. We're running a little bit ahead of schedule. So Fred, if you have something to add, I'd love to hear it.
So I've been at a round table today talking about scorecards and production readiness and gate releases, or to protect yourself. And when it comes to compliance, especially at Xero, and we really want, again, we want to give space for the engineers to be able to develop, to have the freedom to focus again on our customer problems. And that's where Cortex becomes a key player for us, and that's where scorecards come in. So we have a clear indication of we need to be compliant, and we need to be able to reply back or to provide the necessary information during our audits on a yearly basis. And we're leveraging scorecards to do that. So we automate as much as possible so the engineer doesn't have to worry about that. But they still have visibility. They're still in a position to know that if they, based on levels, if they may be at a bronze level from a compliance perspective, and they can then take the action to ensure when we get to the end of the year that that information is available for us. And that's a key factor for us.
Yeah, and I think I love what you touched on. I mean, obviously I love scorecards and all things to do with scorecards, but having that visibility, not making it something that they have to think about, but it's there for them to see and potentially gate, I think that's a great way to do it. Salman, is there anything you'd like to add?
Not about compliance specifically, but I feel like, especially like we're all in the banking industry, like it just becomes part of the engineering problem in general, where you have levers you can pull, you have levers you can't pull, and you're optimizing in the space that you're in. So like, I think from a developer perspective, it's less like, oh no, we have compliance, and more like, these are the constraints on the ticket that I'm building, so I have to stay within those lines.
Yeah, I guess that's a good way to think about it. Earlier we talked about, governance feeling like a heavy word, but you don't have to make it heavy. Compliance, same thing, right? You don't have to make it seem like, ugh. You can kind of make it just, this is how we do things here.
It's a requirement.
Yeah, it's your playbook. I love that. Well, I really want to thank you, Fred, Purva, Salman, for taking time, obviously doing all the prep to get here and spending some time with us today and telling us how you move fast and don't break things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.